And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Rallyman. Now I have to say that I've seen clips of rallies on TV, but I've never actually really done much with them or watched them in any great detail. But it's more about speed and getting a car through a course rather than it is about an actual race, racing other cars. Well, Rallyman does the same thing. You set up a track, and there's multitudes of different tracks you can set up. And while you're kind of racing at the same time, you're basically racing to see how fast you can go through. So you could technically play it a solo game. But it has a bit of a push your luck attitude to it. You know, just how fast will you take that curve? But it's neat. It's different than other racing games that I played. Let's take a closer look. So here is the track for Rallyman. Or is that the track? Maybe I'll switch this one here. Or maybe I'll move it up here. Or maybe I'll move this one over here. See, basically you can do anything you want as long as you make a starting and an ending point. And you do those by taking these things which you cut out of the card. That's kind of annoying. I hate when you have to cut stuff out of cards. So I say here's the finish line and here's the starting line. Actually, let's reverse those. Now this is a very small rally, but you're going to be picking 3 of those rallies. And each player is going to have a score sheet, and they're going to be using this score sheet to keep track of their times for each of the rallies. And it's also, you'll mark here where that rally runs from. There's little letters down here. So here I would say this one starts at L6, goes to L5, then goes from JO to J9. And you basically can pick anything you want. Now, what players are going to do? Now, this, like I said, it's not technically a race. But see, one player will start. So he takes his first turn. And then we go to round 2, and that player goes again. And then the second player goes. And then we go to round 3, and the first player goes again, second player goes, and now the third player comes on. And then the first player, then the second player, then the third player, then the fourth player comes on, and at that point we just go until everyone's finished. Everyone gets to play the same length of time. And it is possible to catch someone and overtake him as long as there's enough room in the space. But for the most part, you're racing on your own to some degree. Now, here's how you race. When you start the game, you are in first gear. There are 5 gears of the game, and each of those gears is represented by cards that show those gears. So we have first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. There are also dice that represent each of those gears, and a player will start his turn with all these dice plus 2 acceleration dice. They know they have that many dice because they'll start here with their card, and it will tell them that they have all those dice. Hopefully they get to keep them over the course of the round. So I start in first gear, so I roll the first die, and usually it's going to end up with the same number, but I might roll a caution symbol. I then have a choice of rolling the second gear, or I can roll this die, the acceleration die. Again, I got to watch out for these caution symbols, because if I ever roll 3 of these caution symbols together, then my car will spin out. So I can roll in any order of gear I want. When I'm done, for each die that I roll, I am allowed to move my car 1 space. But there is some caveats to how you move on the board. Let's look. Here we see a curve. At this curve, you can see that there's a number here, 4, which means you must take that curve in 4th gear. If you can't take that, or less, if you're not, let's say you're in 5th gear, instead of taking the curve and keep going, you would have to take it like this and spin, or at least take it like that until you can spin out and keep going. You can also take this shortcut here in 5th gear straight up if you want, but then you have to draw a shortcut card. So there are some spots on the board, like this first curve here, where you see that you must take this at speed 1, or you can kind of skid around the curve in speed 2. Now, when you skid or when you curve it, you're fine, but if you're over that speed, again, you will spin out. So those are your restrictions. You have to keep an eye on the curves for when you're using these. But once you're done with your move and you're done rolling all the dice that you've taken, let's say my last die that I rolled, acceleration dice don't count. The last number die I roll, I take the number card. So let's say the last gear I rolled was 4th gear. I take this card and put it on a stack in front of me, showing that I've taken 20 seconds for that part of the race. And that's how you do it. You're going to be having a stack of these cards. Obviously, you don't want your last gear to be here. But when you are in a gear, let's say I'm in 4th gear, the next turn I must start with either a 4th gear die, 3rd gear or 5th gear, 1 gear up or 1 gear down, or I can always start with acceleration dice. I can put those basically wherever I want. But let's say I start with 4th gear and then go to 3rd gear, then I have to continue going down. I can't go to 4th, then 3rd, then back up to 4th again. Each die can only be rolled 1 time. Now, if you spin out, and there's several ways to spin out, messing up on a curve or rolling 3 of those caution symbols can make you spin out. Whichever gear you were going in when you spun out, you'll take the top card of that and put that in front of you to show that you've been spun out. Next turn you start in gear 1, and look, this adds a whole minute to your time, as opposed to the 10 seconds that gear 5 does, or even the 40 seconds that gear 2 does. Also, I said when you go through one of those shortcuts, you have to draw a shortcut card, which has this symbol here. If you draw OK, go, you are fine. But not all the cards say OK, go. Some of them, you're fine, but you throw mud up on the track, which messes up other people and forces them to go slower through the curve. Other times, you're going to draw one where you're going to get a flat tire. When you get a flat tire, you will take one of these little black markers. The orange ones are the mud. You'll take a little black marker and you will put it on top of one of your one of these tire spots here, which means in the future you no longer have one of your acceleration dice. Or if you get it twice, you no longer have either acceleration die. And if you get it a 3rd time, well, then you're out of that rally. You can play a spare tire card, which essentially is worth 0 and put you back down in 1st gear, and it will fix one of those tires, but it does add to your time. And I think it's only recommended to do on a longer rally. You can also lose your other gears if you're not careful, depending on different ways, and going over bumps. Bumps! What is a bump? Well, let's see. Let's find a bump here on the track. Over here, we have a bump right there. When you go over a bump, let's say you're speed 3 and you go over it and you're speed 2, you're fine. Nothing happens. If you hit it at speed 3, you actually will skip the next spot. And if you hit it at a higher than speed 3, let's say I hit it at speed 4 or 5, I will jump even farther, but then I roll the die, and if I roll a die and the caution symbol comes up, I automatically spin out on that round. So that's basically how the round works. In between rounds, you can do other things. And there's even extra rules to add snowboards. Each of these boards has a snowboard on the back of it where you can play on a snowy course, which is crazy, but hey, you can do it. And there's some other optional rules, but I do want to mention one optional rule which I always play with now. See, when you roll these dice, you keep rolling, and when you roll 2 caution symbols, you're going to be really careful about rolling that 3rd one. I mean, usually people will stop at that point. However, I think it's more fun to play by an optional rule, which uses these second markers. A small one's 1 second, and the large ones are 5 seconds. Now, when you decide on your turn to roll, instead of rolling each die one at a time, you pick how many dice you're going to roll and what gear you're going to end in. So let's say I'm in 1st gear. I'm saying I'm going to roll 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and both acceleration dice. I then roll all 5 dice simultaneously. Ah, look. There I rolled 3 of the caution symbols. That's terrible. So because of that, I now spun out. But because I rolled 5 dice at one time, I take 5 seconds. These seconds will be subtracted from my time at the end. So the more dice I roll at a time, I can get these second markers. And I can also, in the future, use some of these second markers to cancel out caution markers that I roll. Like this. Hoorah! And so that can really be useful. And I like this because it has much more of a push your luck aspect to the game rather than the dilly-dallying that can go on before where, yeah, I'll roll 1 die, I'll roll another die. Nah, you choose how many dice you're going to roll, and you roll it now. Lots of fun. That's pretty much the game. At the end of the rallies, you add up your total time, and whoever has the shortest possible time is the winner. Well, there you go. I like this. See, I like a racing game in which I can pull out and play 45 minutes, and we're just having a good time. And this game has so many of those moments where I say, hey, you know what? I'm going to try and go through the curve here. I'm going to try to do this. And then you mess up and you're like, well, that's it. I'm probably out of the race. But you're never sure you're out of the race, so you just keep going as fast as you can or as slow as you can, around these curves. And it's just interesting. It's very unique, racing for time in a game. And I know some people will miss the actual idea of messing with your competitors, although you can still do that a little bit by throwing mud up on the track or what have you. But for the most part, it's just an interesting game with many different variations, and it can be short and it's simple to play. Maybe a little difficult to explain to new people because it's just a little odd on how the game works, because nothing like any other racing game, but I like it and I'm keeping it.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.